everybody, this is Sarah from PiinPoint. Welcome to today's webinar. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time here in Kitchener, so we're going to get started on the webinar for introducing our new report interface. Glad that you could all join here today. So we'll just launch right into our agenda here. If you have questions or comments during the webinar, feel free to use the chat tool. So within the Join Me, at the top of your screen, you should see a little green speech bubble. You can pop questions in there throughout the next 30 minutes, and I'll be watching those to field any questions, do a bit of a Q&A. And we'll also maybe ask for some feedback towards the end of the webinar as well, so keep an eye on that chat tool. In terms of what we're going to be looking at today, as you know, we are releasing some new changes to PiinPoint's single site reports. Primarily, we're making changes to the look and feel and bringing in some new components. So what we're going to cover here are, first of all, why we're making these changes and what the priority was there. We'll talk a little bit about what's new specifically. There's a few new pieces that we'll look at. We're going to also explore an actual report, so we'll jump into PiinPoint quickly to take a peek at that, and then talk a bit about release schedule, when you guys can anticipate seeing it in your account, and finally talk a bit about what's coming up next. So we'll just jump right into it. We've heard a lot of feedback from our users, people like you, about reports, pieces you like, pieces you don't like, what could be changed or what could be improved. And so the main thing that we are trying to accomplish by releasing these new reports is to, one, make insights more easy to pull from the report, so less reading into tables, deciphering data, trying to come to conclusions about things, and just more immediate insights. And then the second piece is really to make these reports more shareable in a hard copy format. So if you're taking reports offline, saving them to a PDF, that's become a simplified process and an improved process with the final report. So let's take a peek at what is new. We'll just jump right into this here. So right here you can see a previous report and a new report. This is sort of your general look and feel. Besides coloring changes to kind of better represent the actual UI that you see in PiinPoint today, we've added in a few new components. But for the most part, you'll see that the tab format of the reports, where you have your summary page, your demographics, points of interest, and existing locations, that's all still there. So this is what you would see today, and in the coming days and weeks, this is what you will see going forward. So a little bit of, again, that different look and feel, some new pieces that we'll speak to. But, overall, some familiarity there for sure. If we kind of jump into the specifics here, one of the new pieces that we've added are these demographic cards that are supposed to really help with identifying what type of people live within the trade area you've built a report for. So on the right-hand side here, you can see, right off the bat, I can tell that my trade area is pretty educated. It's actually more educated than, the city average, if we're looking at Toronto. For the Canadians on the line. In terms of age, I can quickly see if it's an older or younger area. Is it a diverse community? Are there high unemployment rates or a lot of affluency? These demographic cards are going to point you to that right away. And then if you want, you can get a breakdown a little bit further. So we'll take a peek at those in the reports themselves. In addition to the demographic cards, in any report you build, you'll see a retail landscape included on that overview page. So this is, again, brand new. The goal is to help you understand what kind of market it is. Is it dominated by, entertainment businesses and restaurants, or are there more, personal care, doctor's offices, dentists, family-oriented services, or what have you. So with this quick snapshot, you can kind of see the market as a whole and what percentage would be restaurants versus cafes and so on. So that's a new piece. When we talk about printing to PDF, I alluded to this at the beginning of the call. your research can really easily be taken into a hard copy format with these new reports. So there's no longer this differentiation between the online version of the report and the physical version. It's pretty much the same. You can see a snapshot here where we head into a print preview. I'll walk us through that in a couple of minutes, but that's a big new piece to the reports here. On the points of interest page of the reports, in the past, you would see your map and then a couple different tables to show which brands are most prevalent and which brands are closest by. Or wouldn't have to be brands, you could also be looking at business categories. The nearby brands display now shows you the top brands that are in the area. So even if you just wanted to run an analysis on all restaurants within a trade area, it will pull out specific brands that are most common. So in this one here, I'm obviously looking at fast food restaurants or maybe even burger restaurants in particular. And you can see that McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, those are your really prevalent companies or brands. And then if you were to click show more, you'd see a full count on who those other folks were. We have projection data that continues into the new report similar to in the past. There's now the option to look at projections for income or population within one graph, so it's a little bit more interactive there. And that goes for your shared reports or the reports that you've just created yourself. All right, we'll jump into actually looking at a report here. I'm going to zip over to my PiinPoint account. So the process for building your reports is the exact same. That hasn't changed either. So we might have a 5-minute drive time here. I'm looking in South Vancouver area, and I've got a few different POIs on the map. We've got some Starbucks, some fitness centers, Pilates and gyms, a few, fresh or fast casual type brands as well. And what I want to do is pull a demographic report that also, shows the different companies that are here for this 5-minute drive time. So same as before, we would click on Build Report. That's going to give you your report modal to go ahead and create the report in a new tab. And again, similar to before, it will load up in a new tab in your browser that I have loaded up here. And here you go. So you can see that new look and feel, the blue and gray sort of UI. But at the heart of the report, it really, it's maintaining all of your current functionality. So you're not losing too much here really at all, just getting some new additional functionality. So at the top of the page, you'll see your 4 different tabs. We've got the overview, demographics, points of interest, and if you've got a retail network loaded into your account, you'll see that as well in the existing locations page. And then rather than all of our sharing options being located in the center of the report, they're along the top right-hand corner up here. So you can see we've got comparisons, export to Excel, print, and share options up here. The one new piece that you'll see here is the option to edit comparisons. So if you generated a report based on a drive time, and let's say you included a few different comparison rings in the report. In this case, I pulled in a 1, 2, and 3 kilometer radius. What we could do is actually add in an additional comparison range. So if we would click on here, right from within the report, I could say, you know what, I want to look at the 1, 2, 3 kilometer ring, but I also want to see, let's say, a 10-minute drive time. So that's something that you could plunk in there, right within your report. Some things that have changed that are new, we still got traffic here, of course. You can now show labels for traffic. So if you wanted to just be able to really quickly know what the counts were at all these locations, we would click show labels, and then you can see the count or the number for those traffic volumes. Same as before, you have the option to look at vehicles or pedestrian counts, and then the option to expand the map a little bit in the case that you want to see a larger area. We'll scroll down a little bit further here. And this is where you see some of those first demographic cards. So this is on your overview page. And again, right off the bat, we can see here, this area is a little bit lower in terms of median household income. It's about at par with the Vancouver area, so not bad. Age is a little bit younger, so we're maybe hosting more young professionals, young growing families, and employment rate is great. We've got lots of employment here, 86%. So those are all new. They're based on our trade area. So this is saying that within that 5-minute drive time that I built the report, median age is 39. Now what you can do is change that benchmark. So if we wanted to quickly gather, what the actual income was for the Greater Vancouver area, we can click on this drop down here, select Greater Vancouver, and that number is then going to change. So now we can see that the Greater Vancouver income would be about $72K, which is actually a little bit higher than the provincial average of British Columbia. So you look at your provincial or state averages. You can move that to looking at the country level or those comparison ranges that you had added in before. So that's new benchmarks there. If we want to learn more about these, you can select to show the table here. And what's going to pop in are the top 5 occupations within the area. So we can really quickly understand, is it a white-collar community? Are there more blue-collar jobs? Are people working in food services and retail? Or in this case, where we have 17% here for professional, scientific, and technical services. So those are definitely more white-collar. You can do the same thing for income or for age as well. Beneath that, you get your table with your custom demographic criteria. So this is whatever was in your target market panel. You might have some very specific ranges there that are applicable to your brand or the brand of the client that you're working with. So let's say for my case, I wanted to see, in particular, people who are between 20 and 30. As opposed to just the general age range. So I can see here, makes up about 25% of the population. I've got some stats here around family size and then income and total pop as well. Similar to before, you can bring in your extra variables here. So if we were to click on Add Variable, we'd come into our demographic library and we could pick out a few more topics or criteria that we wanted to learn more about. And then one thing that's new here with this table is the ability to choose which geographies or which comparisons are included. So if I click on this option here, right now I've got 3 comparison areas outlined, 1, 2, and 3 kilometer rings. I could bring in the Vancouver comparison. I could remove my 3 kilometer ring or my 2 kilometer ring. Or I could bring in additional ones. So again, that's new, being able to just kind of slice and dice the data within the report a little bit further. Scrolling down a bit more, we're still on our overview page here. You've got a market breakdown. So this is to show you how population changes throughout the day. If we've got a residential population of 123,000 people, we can see during the day that changes. So we're not just in the burbs here, obviously. 70,000 households, that's quite a bit smaller than Greater Vancouver, obviously, about, 8 or 9% there. And then here's that retail landscape that we spoke about earlier. So we get our snapshot on the market. We can see there's a lot of restaurants here, 1,900 to be exact, 1,909, and a lot of healthcare businesses as well. So something like healthcare would speak to, your family doctor, your dentist. When we're looking at personal care, it's more so personal services, so a massage therapist or a hair salon and so on. And then finally, at the bottom of this page, you get your points of interest overview, similar to previous reports, where you can see a count on brands and categories. So as you recall on my map, I was looking at Starbucks, I was looking at juice bars, yoga kind of concepts, a few gyms, some restaurants. So we can see our count here for the drive time versus the 3 comparison ranges I've included. Now, if you want to jump between pages on these new reports, you can use this navigation bar at the bottom of the page, or you can scroll back up to the top. Either way works. So I will click on demographics here, and we'll narrow in on some of the population statistics. Again, this is kind of similar in that you get your overview map to start. Again, you have your demographic table with your custom criteria, and then some visuals. So we've changed the demographic cards here again, giving you a couple more graphs and those breakdowns on the top 5 income brackets and the top 5 age brackets, just so you can quickly understand population at a high level. And same thing for some of these other ones as well. So employment, education, visible minorities. You'll recall on that first page I had opened up the table here and expanded it to show the top 5. And that's carried out throughout my report. So if you make little changes, it will translate to the other pages. Projections, again, you had these before. We've made a bit of a different graph here with the option to sub out income for population or population for income. So you can play around with that. And then similar to before, you have your custom demographic tables. So if you wanted to look at something like age as a whole, education as a whole, expenditures, whatever kind of research you want to get into, you can select specific criteria here and then load them in. We'll go back to the top of the page and take a peek here at points of interest. This page is probably the most similar, so you've still got your count of POIs and brands. And then again, if you've got a retail location network, you'll see how many of your existing sites are there. In the case that you built a drive time trade area, you can quickly change to a radius by clicking on this button here, change to radius, and then you get that slider again. So you could play around with the trade area size or snap it back to the drive time. And then we've got that count of the brands. So obviously Starbucks is always #1. And then we've got some yoga studios that have come up here. These would be the next closest or the next highest count. And then the final table shows you who's closest. So this is really your proximity calculation to see by distance, by roads. So this would be like direct road distances or drive time and walk time. We can do a search as well. So before, if we wanted to look up Bikram or Chipotle, we can pull those in. And we can also just get that full count on the POIs as well from this table here. Again, not telling us anything too much new, given that Starbucks is our primary brand based on what we had researched. We'll look at this last tab here really quickly, and then we'll launch into the print preview. So if you have a retail network of stores loaded into PiinPoint as your My Locations, the existing locations tab is here. You can see your stores located on the map. We can click on them to get that site attribute table, so we can see our sales, we can see our store type, maybe the address, whatever other custom data was loaded here. You have the option to expand the map, and then again, a nearby locations overview and a similar locations overview. So the nearby sites are listing all of the closest stores to this 5-minute drive time I drew within a 20-kilometer radius. So once it's past 20 kilometers, it's really not so close anymore. But this would be pulling the closest ones. So you'll see there's a few pages here. I have 3 listed right away, but then you can click through to additional pages and see how that changes. What you see here is obviously whatever custom attributes you had associated to your stores. So you can see I've got some dummy sales data, and again, you know, those lease rates, my previous year sales, and so on. And then the last piece here is your similar locations. This is the analog model that was in your previous account as well. And what we're doing is looking at the comparison between demographics of your current store network versus the trade area that you built this report on. So the 5-minute drive time that I built this report on is closest in demographic makeup to these sites listed here. So it's going to take a look at all of your stores and compare which ones in this case would have more people within that age range I'd outlined, so 20 to 30 people. Maybe if I'd been looking for more people employed in professional occupations, it would be finding places that also had more people employed in those types of occupations. All right, that's it for the report itself. So as you can see, it's not removing any functionality, and it maintains a similar look and feel, but there's a few new pieces and just some optimized workflows for sharing the data and comparing it to other distances. Now, when we talk about being able to take this data outside of PiinPoint, the export and share options are still the same. What's new is this print functionality. When we click on print, you'll go into a print preview. So you'll see my screen's changing here. And you can see that this is a printed preview of my report. So what you can do is set up the report as you like, and then you just click print right here, and that'll connect to your device's print settings. So I could add some notes here. I could change my logo. I could expand the map. I could choose to show labels. Maybe you want to extend out some of these tables, or subsequently hide them. You can really just play around with what stuff to include here. And then when you're ready, you just click print, and it will, as I said, connect to your print settings on your computer and let you take it to a hard copy. Or alternatively, you could put this into a PDF as well. So there we go. That is the new report. You guys will see this coming to your accounts before too long. We'll talk about a bit of a release schedule here. So in the coming weeks, we anticipate that all accounts will see the full report. If you haven't already, we're just rolling those out now. And how this will work with previous reports is any report you've built in the past using the white background, previous look and feel, it'll be tagged as a legacy report if you're in your report library. Now that's just for you. It's just a note so that you can tell which ones were before and after. And then down the road, eventually all of your reports will migrate over to this new look and feel. So you won't have to worry about whether or not it's got that additional data or the old stuff. The data itself isn't going to change, so it's the same demographics, it's the same points of interest, but it's just sort of the setup of the information in your report. So if you have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat now. I'm going to speak a little bit to what's going to be next. We've got lots of exciting ideas and plans for additional components to include in these reports that have never been in our reports in the past. So I'm looking forward to sharing some more about that with you here, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it as well. So let me tell you a little bit about what's planned. We are generating trade area insights or summaries to include in each report that really take that snapshot one step further. So instead of just looking at a table of demographics and the table of stats, or even the demographic cards, what the trade area summaries will do is sort of interpret the information for you. So let's say that the income within an area was very high, maybe it was higher than the greater Vancouver area, and there were very small families. We might say something like there are large, well-off, middle-aged families here living in expensive homes, if the data lined up to that description. So you can see it's going to comment on things like ethnicity, education, as well as points of interest. So that snapshot or the landscape where we looked at what type of commercial activity is happening would also be summarized here. So those are your trade area summaries. It's something you would see on the overview page of your report, just to give you a quick overview on what's going on within the market. A second piece of what's coming next are integrated suitability scores. This is for those folks on the line who have a suitability study completed with PiinPoint, and you're using layers to look at the suitability of a given site. So if you know that a certain area has some 80% sort of scores, some scores that are more so in the 60 to 50% range, what this will do is pull the nearest score in your trade area and give you the average suitability results. So again, next to your trade area overview and before those demographic cards, you can see what the average suitability is of this potential new area. And then finally, we're also, another idea here or another piece we're working on is having a demographic heat map, something that you can toggle on within your reports. We've heard from a lot of folks that they'd like to be able to share that demographic heat map with their colleagues or their clients. So this would give you the ability to toggle on whatever variables were in your target market. You could toggle them on, hover around, see what the population and income median was, if that was what you had selected for criteria, and then change the opacity and the number of blocks that are also resulting. So those are just a few exciting things that we're working on and will be released down the road. If you have comments on those, I'd love to hear what's most important to you. As you know, we're always looking for prioritizing the improvements and innovation in PiinPoint based on our users' needs. So if you guys think one of those things would be more interesting, or if there's something else you'd love to see in a report, I would love to know that, and our team would love to know that. So there's a few different things I've brought up here: the shareable demographic heat map, the integrated suitability score, and those trade area summaries. If you have feedback, you're welcome to insert that into the chat button now. So if you open up the little chat bubble at the top of your screen in the join.me, you can just comment to myself or to everybody in the webinar today what you think would be most interesting. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and you can always send me an email as well if you've ever got feedback. We're always happy to hear. So those are your 4 possible components, and we will be happy to discuss that further if you've got other ideas. So if you want to learn a bit more, you might have seen there's some information in our Help Center on the different changes that I've walked through today. You can go to help.piinpoint.com, and if you've been there before, you'll recognize that screenshot on the page here. You can search for things by keyword, and there's definitely as well a collection for reports and news that you could go find some updates on. Contact myself or your customer success manager as well if you've got questions. We're always happy to connect and walk you through any changes. And then you can also get a sample shared report from us. So if you wanted to maybe circulate it internally or start to play around with it a little bit, we'd be happy to provide that to you. All right, that is it for today, folks. I think we're wrapping up with a couple minutes to spare, so I'll give you back some time on your Wednesday afternoon here. Thank you so much for joining, and let me know if you've got any questions following our call here. Have a great day.